much for the introduction. I am actually representing Autodesk, not AutoCAD, but it's a common mistake. And I'm here representing Autodesk as part of EduCAD. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview on Autodesk's technology. I know over the course of today and the rest of the week, you probably heard a lot about different disciplines and whether it's energy analysis and that kind of thing. But we're really the technology behind this that drives a lot of it. So in case you haven't heard of us before, this is what we do. And like I mentioned, the reason why I'm here, you would have seen a very good example of wind analysis done in an application called Autodesk CFD, and it also ties into what the previous speaker spoke about. But just to tell you more about ourselves, we really, as Autodesk, our vision is to help people imagine, design, and create a better world. And in the context of this, students coming all together in the architecture discipline, definitely creating more energy efficient, more sustainable, better designed buildings would ultimately be part of creating a better world. So, like we mentioned, we started 3 years ago now. A lot of you have probably heard about AutoCAD before, and we started with 16 employees, one software title, created AutoCAD. And now in terms of 3D software, whether it's for architectural, quantity surveying, civil engineering, all the different elements that actually adds to the design and the built world around us. We've got 10 million plus users out about 800,000 different companies. What's specific to us is our deep and broad product portfolio. I always like to show the show reel because you see clips of Iron Man. I'm quite proud that Autodesk software was used to create the likes of Iron Man, Avatar, that kind of thing. And then what's significant is that we have an upcoming workforce of 1.2 million students trained on our software per year. So if you're interested and thinking, maybe I should start using Revit to do my design on, and you're not sure if it's actually getting used in industry, this should show you that it definitely is something that's quite commonly used in the industry itself. And then we've got a whole bunch of pretty cool consumer applications that touch different people. So whether it's software, photo editing apps, social cam, a lot of those type of things. Now, basically what I would like to talk to you today, and without sounding like just telling you what Autodesk is all about and what we do, basically data-driven design. And in terms of data-driven design, if we look at the likes of the digital entertainment creation, that's all your animation. Any of you into gaming would have probably noticed some of the games shown in the show reel. But if we look at the AEC space, now that's architecture, engineering, and construction, really what we do there in terms of data-driven design is building information modeling. Now, I always do this, and I have to do it again. Raise your hands if you're familiar with building information modeling. Okay, I like that, it's more than usual. So, if you're not, here's a quick overview of what it is. And really, building information modeling is, some of you might know what it is, some of you might have heard about it before, commonly called BIM. There's a lot of misconceptions around it. So a lot of people in industry or as students think like, put on your CV, well, I can do BIM, or I know BIM, and then you think, BIM is Revit, or BIM is AutoCAD, or BIM is, I'm designing in 3D on my computer, I'm totally doing BIM. And it's not necessarily that. So I see a smile on the crowd. So what building information modeling actually is, and it's really got nothing to do with Autodesk as such, but really just a massive trend that we're seeing in the architectural industry, is that it's an integrated process where you generate and maintain. So you don't just create this thing and then you leave it. You generate and maintain an intelligent model that acts as a digital representation. Obviously the model is on your computer. And it has both physical and functional characteristics. So you're adding information to this model. And architects, unfortunately, it's not just for buildings. I know it says building information modeling, but it's actually for a real world facility. So you can use the same approach whether you're designing a building or you're designing a road or a bridge or whatever the case is. Now remember, it's a process, it's a way of working, and like I mentioned, it really is an industry trend, and it's where everyone in industry is moving towards. And the reason why we see that move towards working this way as opposed to drawing and designing on pen and paper or just using standard kind of dumb modeling, is that this really acts as a shared knowledge resource. So we know that in practice, the architect's not the only person involved in the building. We have building service engineers, we've got structural engineers, we've got designers, we've got quantity surveyors, we've got the people who actually need to build the building at the end of the day. There's a lot of different disciplines and people involved in this building. And what you design needs to be shared with different engineers. And it'll also provide insight for you. Like we mentioned, the previous speaker gave some great examples of if you're doing, for example, wind simulation, the type of insight you get into that design. And that'll obviously help you make better decisions. If you can actually see how your building would perform, or how your building and your wonderful architectural features would fit into what the structural engineer actually needs to do to get this building to stay in place, you can start making better decisions. And it's not just in the design stage, so it's not redesign using this building information modeling process and then kind of, well, that's the end of it. It's throughout the entire life cycle of the project. So where it goes to site, you can take BIM to the field. Where you start doing renovations or retrofits, you can still use the same model. And a pretty cool thing that this will allow you to do is start accurately predicting the outcome, especially when it comes to simulation and analysis. You can see you're almost creating a digital prototype of your building, saying, well, once I build, this is what it would look like. Now, just to give you a sense of BIM adoption, and this is not something that I thought of, it's actually from the McGraw-Hill construction report. That's a global kind of survey that they do on different disciplines, is that you can obviously see that the architects are leading this philosophy and this process of doing building information modeling. And if you don't believe me and you think I'm just telling you about this because it's some sales pitch, there's the proof that a whole bunch of architects are actually using this approach. And usually the architect's the more kind of untrained person. Now, in terms of what does this look like? Why building information modeling? What is it? What goes into it? What is this process all about? Really, if you have a look at your modeling and design, and I wonder if I can actually move around with this thing. Can I? No, I can't. Okay, so I'll have to stand in one place then. So usually in a lot of cases, your conceptual design is on a piece of paper and then you visualize, using pastels or whatever the case is. And you've got all these different sources. Whereas if you use building information modeling and on an Autodesk platform, your modeling and your design, as well as your conceptual design, your fabrication, your visualization, your simulation, your construction documents, your analysis, whether it's for architects, it would be sustainable analysis. For structural engineers, structural analysis. Service engineers, all your analysis all sits on the same model. So you design one model and you build one model in Revit, for example, and you can get your fabrication out of that. Literally, a section, if done correctly according to the BIM process, is dropping in a line and adding in all your information. So all the different tasks, it's not just a design task. All the different tasks would leverage one model with all the information in. And the more information you have in your model, the easier it would be for everyone involved in this actual process. Now, just to give you a sense, and please raise your hand if you disagree with this, kind of more or less the workflow that an architect would follow: schematic design, right? Conceptual design and analysis. Some might analyze, some might not. You start developing your design, and somewhere in between there, you'll have a bit of visualization because you'll need to communicate what you've done. Obviously, you can be the best damn architect in the world if you can't show someone, well, this is what I have in here, no one's going to ever actually notice you. And then documentation, fairly important, because whatever you design, you would like ultimately for it to be built or to actually be realized. Now, if you think of BIM and you think of a BIM model, and it's one model, so in terms of architects, engineers, everyone working together, in terms of you working in a group, I know that some of you might have entered the competition, so if you did, for example, your Des Baker on Revit, you would have had one model and everyone works on one model, and if one person changed something, you'll get updated, so you're not working on something, meanwhile your friends already changed it 6 times. So all of this, one model. To give you a sense of how we fit into this, because this is the type of work you're doing, is sketchbook. So a lot of the times, everyone sketched on pen and paper. I mentioned in my masterclass, as a student, my lecture nailed me on how important it is to be able to draw. As an architect, you're supposed to be able to draw and draw pretty well at that. And it also ties into your kind of conceptual design and sketching, which you can do on a pen and paper, or alternatively, if you want to move over to doing it digitally, you can. Autodesk Format is a new one. I don't know, raise your hand if you have an iPad. Oh, one. Usually I get a whole bunch of people. So, well, a lot of the times I have this picture in my mind of like a very fancy architect sitting with their iPad at like a Villa Cafe or something, drinking coffee. Now you can actually do 3D design and you can start building your forms and sketching and designing on your iPad. And that can immediately be taken into Revit and you can start building on that. So, gone are the days of kind of like sketching and drawing. All of that can also be done digitally. Then if we have a look in terms of your conceptual design, analysis, design development, documentation, Revit. If you don't know Revit, I suggest go and have a look at it. And if you do know it, I suggest using it in the proper way so that you can also use this building information modeling approach. New technology that we've added is moving to the cloud. Always like the first time I heard cloud, I'm like, what is the cloud? So if you're familiar with Apple and you know iCloud, it's the kind of same principle, or SoundCloud. But now a lot of things have moved to the cloud. So your energy analysis, any analysis simulation takes a lot of hardware power. Not all of us can afford like the best high-end laptop. If you move that to the cloud, it's using infinite computing power. So your energy analysis can be done within an Autodesk solution, and you use that same one model. I heard the previous speaker mention ASHRAE, the American Society of... So it's both Green Building Studio and Revit has been certified by the American Society of Heating, and I can't remember the whole name, but yes. In terms of design development, the same model that you use to do your analysis on, the same information that you get from your analysis, you can start doing your visualization from. So it's not a create a new thing. The same material that you used to do your analysis on can go over into 3ds Max and you can start creating these awesome, wonderful type of renderings. Or you can send your renderings to the cloud. In my masterclass earlier this morning, I spoke about, like anyone who's ever rendered on Revit knows it takes kind of a long time and you have to just sit and look at your machine. However, if you send it to the cloud, it means your Revit's open and it's happening on the cloud, which means it's taking a lot less time. And then also in terms of documentation, using your same Revit model to do your documentation means the same type of information that you put in there you can use. If you set up your wall initially to be your exact wall that you're using that has the cavity wall, that has the correct dimensions, by the time it gets to documentation, it should be a lot shorter of a process because you already have all that information in there. Just to give you a sense of how you as architects fit into this process and how that ties into construction and how BIM actually is everyone coming together is if you've got a multidiscipline model, so that model that you saw on the show reel, basically that's a hospital that they build in the US, and everyone on the project worked on essentially one model. So your structural engineers, your architects, your MEP guys, all the civil engineers, the visualization, documentation, and from there you can move into things like quantification, estimating, clash detection, scheduling, everything done off one model if you have the correct information added to it. So basically, what is building information modeling? It's unmatched end-to-end workflows for the building lifecycle. So you use one model and one kind of way of working to start from your design conceptual stage and take it right through to actually building it and managing that. Now, how do our customers actually use it? I'm telling you about this, maybe it's just something that we came up with and no one's actually doing it. But really, like I mentioned, design, visualize, simulate, and collaborate. Give you a good example, Shanghai Tower in China was supposed to finish in the beginning of 2014. So according to the owner, it's one of the world's tallest and greenest buildings, which is pretty cool. In my mind, to actually get a green skyrise isn't extremely easy. And something that anyone who's ever been involved with something that they designed and actually went into construction would know how significant this is. So the first time I read this, that 70,000 tons of steel was used in construction so far. Only 2 tons wasted. I'm like, well, 2 tons of steel, that's a lot. That's a lot of waste. But if you have a look at the fact that it's 1,000-time reduction as the planned wastage, and that's something that only happened because they had all this information in one model and they actually collaborated with everyone a part of that. Now, this to me was also very interesting. It has a curved curtain panel with 19,000 different glass panels, no two alike. So you can see from the little curve there that every single glass panel that fits into that is a different size. Now, one, can you imagine designing that? Two, can you imagine actually building that? Interesting part, now they're not finished, so maybe it will change once they're done. But so far, over 20,000 square meters of panels installed to date. Not a one has been sent back because it was assigned to the wrong place or it actually didn't fit. Now, if you haven't been a part of an actual build, but to me that's fairly significant, and it's something that you can only get once you're using the intelligent design and you have a whole bunch of data added to it. So all of these things really nice, and speaking about a lot of software and things you can do with that, and building information modeling. If building information modeling is the process, then Autodesk has the technology. And if you're a student, the fun part about this is that you can all get this for free. So there's over 35,000 different, over 35 different software applications that you can download for free. We invest heavily in students as Autodesk. You get a 3-year license. Speak to someone who's actually bought a Revit before and they'll tell you the real cost of it if you're a commercial user, and you'll see that getting it for free is actually pretty cool. There's also learning materials. To me, I spoke to a girl earlier today and she's like, well, how do you get up to date with Revit, or how do you get up to date with that? A lot of the things is from YouTube, and there's great learning resources on this community. So basically all the software that was used to create that showreel that I showed you, from Iron Man to your CFD, your buildings, all that, you can download that for free. And then there's a new thing that Autodesk brought out. It's really, it's Design Suite. So think of it as Microsoft Office, but just like Microsoft Office for an architect. So a building design suite, which has all these little tools that you would use as an architect in a build environment. Now, this usually as students was not available to you before, but I know a lot of you, especially when you get to kind of your 4th year or perhaps doing your masters, at some point, I don't know who doesn't want to open their own practice one day, and when you move over from being a student into actual industry, you won't have the privileges of having it as a student. You'll actually need to have a commercial license. So suites are now available for students. Now, it sounds strange because it's available to free for you, the individual products, but as a suite for South African, you can buy it at 1,800 Rand. Once again, speak to someone who bought the full package and you'll see that's a massive saving. And the cool thing about that is you get your license, there's no watermark, so the only thing about the student version is anyone who's ever tried printing will see that it says student version, right? So that you don't use it for commercial use. So there's no watermark, it's a lot easier to install. And once you then actually move into industry and you're like, well, I've started my own practice, or I'm working with this person, because you've bought that, you can actually get a 20% discount on buying the full thing. Okay, so if that doesn't make sense, like I mentioned, Autodesk has moved to the cloud. Like iCloud, they call it Autodesk 360. And like I mentioned, you can do your rendering on the cloud, you can do your analysis on the cloud, you can do your structural analysis on the cloud. For example, the rendering, and I see that I'm almost out of time, I'll run through it quickly. How many other times have any of you ever rendered on Revit and know you kind of like sleep on the couch, wake up, see if it's done, because you have to save it when it's done. Now you can actually access that on your phone, go out, access it on your phone via 360, see, well, actually, this didn't work out right, I need to change my render settings and render it again from your phone without being at your actual computer. So when they say it gives collaboration and design anywhere, that's the kind of thing that you can start doing with that. There's also AutoCAD WS, where you can actually view your plans on mobile devices and all that kind of thing. Now, this is the interesting part, and I know a lot of you, it's like one competition ends and another one begins. But so Autodesk Education with EduCAD has launched the Africa BIM Student Design Competition. What it's about is you are basically invited to bid for the brand new Metrobus Transit Centre. It's located in Johannesburg. So while you're designing this, and you can have a look at the website, I'll give you some more detail on that. The final design will be submitted to the city of Johannesburg, or it will be a really cool thing to put in your portfolio. Now, just to give you an overview of that, it's basically in an urban context. If you enter the design competition, you can actually get a Revit template that has set up the location and everything exactly for you. So in terms of climate data and topography, we'll all provide that to you. It's for commuters, tourists, shoppers. It's about 1,000 square meters. You can use different materials, obviously appropriate materials. It's a little bit of a budget constraint to it. I know sometimes in competitions or when you design, if you're not aware of budget, you tend to go overboard. And like I mentioned, basically designing the Metrobus transit centre. There's different categories, so there's a multidisciplinary category where you can do as a bunch of architects, if you have a friend doing interior or structural civil engineering, actually doing this all together as one multidisciplinary team, and using this building information modeling process would make it a lot easier. There's an architectural category only doing the architectural of it. There's an interior category, and then there's also a sustainable design category. So for more information, the website is www.africaboom.co.za, where you can look at the detailed overview and brief. To give you a sense of eligibility, anyone enrolled in universities, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, if you're from those countries, and you need to be third year or fourth year, and then your postgraduates can also do that. You can either do it as a team, or you can do it as an individual. Just some submission requirements is, so the use of Revit is compulsory. You can use any of the other software mentioned there, so whether you want to do your visualization in 3 Max, if you want to use Green Building Studio, or Ecotect, or Visari to do some of your analysis. If you want to use Navisworks to work with your friends over at engineering, you can do that. Judging criteria, just quickly overview. Basic standard judging criteria, you need to be original, you need to have a certain level of complexity, it needs to be practical and array, it needs to obviously meet the design objectives that a typical bus or train station would. You need to show understanding or utilization of building information modeling versus just your standard old way of working. Any sustainability added to that would be great, and then also it needs to be presented in a proper way. This is the interesting part, prizes. So architectural category, 10,000 Rand cash for the winner, 5,000 for the runner-up. You also get a 1,000 Rand gift voucher to go and do your certification for Revit. So with all the different Autodesk applications, if you do your certification, you go onto a global database. Anyone searching that would see this, that, and those persons would have a certificate and, you know, like a stamp of approval that you know how to use Revit or you know how to use AutoCAD. Then you also get those design suites that I mentioned, and you get a Wacom drawing tablet. Interior category, basically exactly the same, so 10 grand for the multidisciplinary team. You get 7 grand for each member within the team, as well as then the same type of prep for your certification and a manual, and you get the building design suite. And then for the sustainability, you get a special pro trophy for the university. Isn't that great? And then 5,000 to the winning team. Now, within this, you can enter more than one category, so you can be architectural and your sustainable category as well. And this is how you basically get started. So go and register. Submissions close on entries close on the 6th of September, and then I think it's So submit your entry by the 10th of October. We'll actually need your entries, and you've got the website there. Any questions? I ran through that last part really quick. So I'll be hanging around here. I've got some, if you want more information on the competition, if you're keen, if you want to ask me anything about Autodesk, Revit, AutoCAD, I'll be there. I also have pamphlets, and if you don't have any questions for me, that's the end of it.